evening to those of you joining from the US, Canada. I see Latin America, many people. And good evening also to our guests tuning in from Switzerland, Belgium, Germany, Serbia, and other countries. So it's great to have you all here. Welcome to today's 4D webinar, where we are diving into 4D Qodly Pro. It's my pleasure to introduce Thomas Maul, VP of Product Strategy here at 4D, who will be walking through a 15-minute live demo. So today, Thomas will show just how simple it is to bring web forms into an existing 4D desktop application. So reusing your business logic with 4D Qodly Pro and Qodly Studio. I will hand the things over to Thomas and enjoy the session.
Hello. In the next 45 minutes, I want to show you how you can use Qodly Studio to extend an existing 4D application with a web interface. I use this example for the invoicing, which is a 5 years old example we used at a World Tour. And at the 4D World Tour, we showed how to use order for user interface. Just in case you want to use that example as a base, you find it on GitHub 4D Depot as example application invoices. But of course, you can use also your own application. I have selected this application because it has a quite hierarchical structure, clients, invoices, invoice lines, and products with relations in between. And we have some records, so I can use that to play with it. To use this old application with Qodly, we need to make some changes in the settings dialog. First, the application needs to be in project mode. It only works in project mode. When in settings, go to web. Of course, we need to launch the web server. Here it's important or interesting to know that while the web server needs to run, you do not need a web server license for that. Qodly is licensed through client licenses and not through web license. But still it needs to be launched. In web features, we need to enable access to Qodly Studio. In this presentation, we don't care about authentication and permissions. Qodly allows to have really in-depth permission handling. You can control which user can read, write, delete, modify which table, even on a field level. And in options here, you need to check if your web server is running in a legacy mode or modern way. No Sessions is the oldest one from 6.7. Legacy Sessions was introduced with version 13. And we need to go to the scalable sessions, meaning a browser can send several requests in parallel. In each process is handled with a preemptive process. So as I did some changes, I need to restart. And what you need to do once in web administration, there's also a settings dialog. And this setting here is stored per computer and not per application. So because I already were using other applications on this computer, it is already enabled. You need to launch the web admin server as startup, of course, access connections. Here it's interesting to see that the web admin server is using a different port than the normal server. So in fact, we are running two servers at the same time. You should need to assign an access key. This is only for your local machine and only for development. And you need to enable the access to Qodly Studio. As said, this is already done. With this settings done, the next thing is to start the Qodly Studio. This is quite easy. In the design menu, there's an entry Qodly Studio. And this launches a browser, and in this browser we launch Qodly Studio. It is inside a browser because it allows us to work in Qodly with a user interface directly showing the result the end user will later get in the browser. Here on the left side, we have, similar to the Explorer in 4D, we can see the existing pages. A page is similar to a 4D form, of course currently empty, but we can even see our methods, our classes, and we can create roles and privileges. Mostly you will stay in that page area. And here I need to create one, name it clients. What you will get now is a page similar to the format editor in 4D. We have on the left side different components like stylebox, text, button, text input, images, radio buttons, and so on, and some listing tools. Beside the delivered components, we can have graphs. Graphs are self-designed components by using standard components, modifying them like a different color, other font sizes, stuff like that, and then storing that as a graph to make it easy to reuse them in the same look and feel. Finally, we have templates. Templates is a collection of predefined pages which you can use either because you say, this looks like something I can use for my application. It makes sense that my own application is looking like that one, and you just copy paste, or you're only using a part of it. And in many cases, it is faster to just copy a part than to redesign it from scratch. And finally, at the end, you can even upload components. There's a wide range of custom components delivering special requirements. Today, we will start really with a white paper and starting everything from scratch. And we use the data table to replicate the behavior of a list box. Just by drag and drop, we move it in, similar to a list box. And the next request is to assign a Qodly source. A Qodly source is like a data source in 4D, or like a variable in 4D. It contains something. It could be a text, it could be a number, it could be an entity, meaning a record, or it could be an entity selection, similar as an order. So here we need an entity selection. On the left side in catalog, we have a list of all classes existing in 4D. And these are the tables I just showed. So we want clients as a data source. So we just click the plus. We can keep a name, entity selection. We want to start with all records. So this allows us to directly use it without doing all records up front. And it has created now one data class clients. And I can drag and drop it directly on the list box. And next thing it tells me I need columns. So if you open clients, we have all our fields. And I can just drag and drop name. Let's also use the contact. And maybe the city. And that's it. So if I save it and go to preview, I already have a list box with all my records. I can scroll. I have endless scrolling or no paging, and everything is working. And this was quite simple. From the work needed, similar to creating a list box in 4D, maybe even easier. So let's make it a little bit more complicated. We don't want to see all the records. We want to have a query where we can enter what kind of record we want. Before doing so, let's spend a second with the grid. Here on the right side, you can customize this grid. So we can see the height of a header, the height of a single row, our three columns we entered, and for each column I can change the name, I can set a format, I can change the width, or say that this should be sortable. For the complete list, we can change fonts, weights, sizes, and background colors and stuff like that. So to create a search field, we go back to our components and we use the text input and just move it on top. So we have a label and a text field. Of course, this text field also needs to be assigned. In 4D, we would assign it to a variable. Here we need to assign it to a data source. So we want a new data source. As you can see, you can assign a data source to the current page, or using a namespace, share it between different pages. In this example, a local data source only for the page is fine. Click plus, and here I can enter a name like query, and I can select the different kind of data sources, like entity selection, entity, string, number, date. And in this case, we need a string, and it should start empty. And by doing a drag and drop, I assign it. It automatically assigns query as for the label, and it assigns a query in the source for the text field. We could say that we want to have a little bit of gap between the query and the grid. This can be easily done by entering here a number like 20. And you see we have a gap. So this is now also important to understand. In 4D, in the form editor of 4D, you position objects on an absolute position. You move it directly where they should appear. Qodly is designed for the web. So instead of using absolute positions, everything is relative to something else. This object should be below the other object. This should be on the other side. You want to have 20 pixels between the objects. An object should be, let's say, 300 pixels. Like this object has a width of 400 pixels. What's the height? Width of 450 pixels. I can define it by pixel, or I can define it by, let's say, 50% of available space. So you can make it relative. Okay, we have a query field, but what is now needed is an action. If I do a query, or if I enter something, I want that 4D is doing a query. So to do so, we need to create a kind of action, or we need to respond to the event. If you click on it, we can here open the event panel and have here a set of different events. Similar as you know from the events in 4D. Change, on click, key up, key down, focus, mouse enter, mouse leave, and the available or the displayed events here depends on the object you have selected. So different object groups might have different events. For each event, you can add a standard action, a navigation action, or a function call going back to 4D, or open a dialog. Important to know, one object can respond to several events of the same type. So you can say, by example, if it's clicked, you want to do first this action and then this action. Here for on change, I simply use the standard action. For the standard action, it wants to know, should I respond to a source, to a state or authentication status? Here we want to respond to the source. The source is clients, what we display in the grid. When it shows me the available actions I can do here, and here we want to have a query. For query string, we enter exactly the same text we would do in an order query. So here we want to search name equal to the content of the first parameter, and the first parameter is query. That's it. Let's save it, try it, and enter something like RL and now a wildcard. And we do a search by characters and wildcard. It is this easy. As a long-term 4D developer, you will say, I don't want my end users to enter a wildcard. All that should be automatically, should not require to do such things. Okay, so we still have 4D, so we can do any kind of coding we want. So in 4D, there's currently no classes. As I said, this is a quite old example. If you already used order classes, you already have a lot of classes existing. If not, the helping is to say here, show all data classes. And when it kind of creates or recommends to create for every table with 3 possible classes, a class for the table itself, for an entity, for a selection. And if I double click that, it really creates it with a good name and with good content. And here I can create a function. Like I get a query, which is a text. I want to return a result, which is client's entity selection. So by specifying what kind of data I return, 4D can automatically respond directly and can display it in type ahead, and also Qodly can help me. And the next thing I need to is text. Great, this is supposed to work. I have absolutely no idea. Ah, okay, this is, sorry. Of course I need a name. So everything is live, I'm sorry. So now it takes the screen as it should be. So I pass to function run query a text with a parameter named query. I return a result, which is a client selection. Yeah, and here the job result equal to ts clients.query name. This is the same as we did in the automatic action, but because we can do coding, let's make it a little bit more complicated. Contact. And here we take our query and automatically add a wildcard. So now we have a function in 4D, but it would not be available in Qodly because it is limited to be used inside 4D only for security reasons. To make it available to Qodly, I need to explicitly write exposed function. And now this function is available through REST, except I use permission. So I could still control it by permission who can call it. But in general, it would be now available. Back to Qodly. I delete my automatic action and create a new one as a function call. If I click on functions, everything is empty, but this is because I just created it and the browser cannot know yet. So I need once to click on refresh, and now my function is here. So this is only required if you work in both sides at the same time, adding new functions in 4D and directly later want to use it. So, and because I declared everything in 4D, I get here automatically, it expects a query, which is a text, and returns a result, which was the names of the parameters, which is a client selection. So in query, I need to pass my data class query, which is also named query, and the result goes in clients to show what I entered. So save that, run it, and now typing alpha, it selects alpha. Or let's say I type Jude. It will find Jude because I also searched in the contact. If I would enter Bart, it would not work because we don't make a search in between. So now the nice thing with 4D, as soon, especially if you use the same function in your 4D desktop application and in the browser application, if you enhance the code only once, it benefits automatically on both sides. So let's say here we want to have a name with wildcards on both sides and contact only wildcard at the end. So we just use here a second parameter. And for the name, we search with both. And for the contact, we only search with wildcard at the end. And maybe we want to order by name. So back to Qodly and I do the same thing again. And now I find bar in the middle. So as you can see, this is really live now. I did a change in 4D and the query in Qodly directly benefits from that. And that is the benefit of exposing functions in 4D and directly use existing code using your existing business logic. There's no need to rewrite everything from scratch. Let me check my script if I forgot something. Yeah, I didn't need it, so I didn't show it. I added the gap here. Sometimes when you want to do things like that, you might struggle by selecting the right object. As you can see, there's a label, there's a field, and clicking in between, I select the whole object. If you have many objects in a form, it could be challenging to select the right one. So on the left side, we have all the components. We have the sources, states and styles, which I don't handle today, and outline. And if we expand outline, we see that we have a page. In the page, we have a text input and a data table. And in the text input, we have a label and an input. So the important thing is I can select here what I want. And this could make it easier to select things when using the user interface, especially if you have many objects overlapping or some even hidden. Okay, what we have so far is now a simple list box and a query box and code behind to make it run. I also showed you how easy it is to use automatic actions. This was the first part, and we can directly jump to the second. Next thing I would like to have is on the right side to fill this empty space. When I select the record, I want to have here the details and I want to have a way to save them. So here, this means on the right side of the list box, it should respond if I make it bigger or smaller. And if it's too small, it should go below so that it even works on a phone or on a tablet. To show you now the idea of making things responsive. To have a way to control the appearance and responsiveness of objects, in the web you usually work with containers similar such as a div. And this is named in Qodly a style box. The style box is an empty thing, and the only purpose of the box is to style the content or the behavior in relation to other style boxes. So in a real life, you are usually using many style boxes. One for the outside, which you can control, and then several inside. And as soon as you work with many style boxes, as a beginner, it can get a little bit confusing. And that is why I do it now step by step, slowly, so you get an idea how people are normally doing that. Here we need 3 style boxes. One as the completely outside frame, and one inside for the grid, and one for the edit area. So I start by adding my first style box, which is now, as you can see, somewhere in between. So let's move it to the top. In that style box, I want to have another style box. So let's move that in. So I have now 2 style boxes. And in the second one, we can start moving the text input in and the data table. I can also move it here. It could be easier. Just the wrong order. And sooner or later, you will get completely confused about what style box is what, especially if I start to move one style box in the next style box. Did not hit with the button. So if I move that style box inside that style box, sooner or later you have completely lost the overview what is where. Especially as I did it now wrong, it's where objects are not in. Ha! Perfect example. So what really helped me is to give this style boxes a name. Like this is the outer frame. Or this should be the outer frame later. And that should be the list. And to have a better understanding of the positioning on screen, you can give them colors. Like yellow for the outer frame. And we use green for the inside part. Because now it is really way easier to move that things in and to fit. So select that, move it in between the green one on top. And on the right side I also want another container. So one more. And again to find that and to see it, I give it now red. And this red one should be, give it a name, let's say detail. Should be in the outer frame and not somewhere else. It should be in the yellow thing. No, it's now below. Close. List detail. So looks confusing. And now if we start to move that, you can see that all three respond to the same. This is not what I want. I want to have red above, beside the green. And now the colors helps me. So if I click the green one, the list, I need to make a width because the width is currently complete. Let's say I make the width to 400 pixel. This was not the width, sorry. This is the width, 500 pixel. And now you can see that the yellow gets through, but the red is still too far. So make also the red 500 pixel. Let's make it bigger. And it's not moving up. Why? That why is because that outside frame has a display block. And we need to go to flex to make it flexible. Flexible means I can have it either by row or by column. I can say where it should be positioned. And if I now resize that, you can see that the red is changing the sides. The red is shrinking. That could be what I want, possible. But it also could be possible that I want for the outer frame the option wrap. And if I use wrap, it now moves below. So what I wanted to show you is that by giving the sides, by giving options such as flex and wrap, you can tell things how to respond. And here, by example, I want to have a gap between them. So do we need the gap on the right side of the green or do we need the gap on the left side of the red? Let's start with the left side here. So I have a gap in between. But if I resize that, you see that gap is on the left. This was not the most clever idea. What I really want is not a gap at the left. I want to have from the green one a gap on the right, maybe a gap at the bottom. Same for that one. And if we now resize, oops, sorry, wrong click. If we now resize, it goes directly below with the same width, but with a gap in between. So to summarize, By giving colors, it is easier to understand what's going on. This is especially if it's new for you to see how to use options like flags or wrap. If you did web development upfront and you are comfortable in CSS and HTML, you already know with options. Then it will be, of course, much easier. If it's new, I recommend to use colors for the beginning, just to get an idea what you are doing. And after a while, you don't need them anymore, because then it will simply works as you want. But if everything is white, it is really challenging to understand what's really going on. And here you can also see why we are using a browser for the studio, because the studio shows us, even in the design mode, the real behavior of the browser. It is the same behavior our application will later use. If we would have created that in a standard application in 4D, we would need to mimic that behavior, but it's not exactly the same. So my objects are now done. Now I can start creating the fields. Here I want to have 3 fields. I need the text input again and move that here in. And let's move 3 times the text input. And now let's assign data sources. So I want to have the data source from the selected element here. So we go to sources. We have in our page the clients. And for the list of clients, I want to have one single client. So I just click on create here. It automatically gives me an entity. I name it client. I don't want to have the first one because I want to have the selected one and have client. The client has now attributes, and I can move with attributes now to my text fields like name, city, and why not the contact, so we can control that we are using the same. This was now easy and fun what I did, but it was not the most clever way, because I first created the 3 inputs and I'm now setting the styles. It would have been more clever to make it just once, to avoid that I need to do the same job now several times, like having a gap in between, changing the width of that, because I should change the width, like 100 pixel, and now I need to do it 3 times. If I would have done it once up front and then use CSS to share it, it would make more sense. But just to show, of course, you can do it like that several times. A gap above and below to have the distance. Now the question is, would it work or not? Let's check it. And nothing happens. Nothing happens because there's no relation yet between clicking and displaying. So we have a data source named client, but nobody knows how to fill it. If you select the grid, you have here the columns, the Qodly source, and here the selected element. And selected element, this is really similar as a list box in 4D, where you also assign which variable to keep the selected element. So all we need to do is here to assign client, to save, try again, and it's working. It is really that simple. So, would it work? Maybe, but save button is missing. So we don't know if it really works or not. So let's try. So first I remove it with red. We don't need that anymore. I guess the concept is clear. We use a button, move it inside. As you know, we can set a margin to have it looks a little bit better. The button has a title, save, and the button has an automatic action. On click, we want to respond to a source. The source is client, the selected client. And as you can see, the available actions depend from the selected object. Here I can save, I can delete, I can have browse buttons to go through, and I want to have a save button. Save our form, go to preview, select one, save. It's saved. Ha! Do you believe me? Okay, let's switch to 4D. We can check in the Data Explorer, and we modified, I forgot. We modified Alpha Business. This was not the most clever record, because this is a record which is now Alpha Business. We have several of them. No, it is this one, and I modified the contact name. And the contact name is not displayed here. This was not so. Okay, this is a real live presentation, so I make live my errors. Let's do it again, and I modify the city. Alpha and I need to refresh. And I'm lost. West Poland. Alpha Business. West Poland. It's fun. So you just fetched me. I never realized that the Data Explorer is not refreshing automatically. I need to close and open, but here you can see that it's saved. So let's do it again to avoid that it looks a little bit strange. We use Alpha Astral. I make behind Georgetown, click on Save. Go back to 4D, open the Data Explorer, and we have a Georgetown with all our amps. And the same in clients. You see also the amps and the Poland. And if I open the Alpha LA service to modify something here, switch to Qodly. This was the LA service. Change something here and click on Save. What should happen? The record is locked. Was it saved or not? No response. Ah, this is bad. So let's go to Edit, click this automatic save button, and select Provide Feedback. And here we say record is saved. Something went wrong. Save. Back to preview. The first one, Alpha Astral. Munich. Save. Sorry. I was in the LA service. I forgot. LA service. Alpha. Changed. Save. Something went wrong. And something went wrong because the record is stored, is logged in 4D. So if I unlock it here, go back to the browser and save again, now it can be saved. So we have record logging in between, and you get a feedback if you enable it. If I disable it, of course, I will not notice that I did something wrong. So that was the second part. We have a grid, we have a query, we have a modification of records, we have a save button, record logging is working, and we have feedback. As a third part, we could consider to make this looking a little bit nicer, or to have more control about how it looks. To change the effect. So here we are using a data grid, which is the most easy feature of a data table. But we also have a matrix. Matrix is drastically more powerful. With a matrix, you can do really everything what you want because you have just a single style box, which is replicated once for every record. So we have full control about how it should look. To do it, we delete the data table and we insert a matrix. Again, we need to assign a data source. So we already have a data source for clients. We can directly use it. And sorry, it was not a data matrix. I used the wrong object. I used the select box. Also a really nice, cool thing, but not what I wanted to show. I want to show the matrix. So here we have the matrix. I need to assign clients. And when I get something looking empty, and if you look inside, we see that the matrix is a container, and inside is one style box, and the style box is the thing we fill. And because everything is empty again or white again, we can use the same trick by making it colorful, just to have a better understanding of what is happening, at least for the beginning. So that yellow part is replicated once per record, filling maximum the space of a red area. And when we get a scroll bar if we have too many. With stylebox, I can set size, distance, the width, by example, from 40 pixel going to 60 pixel. I can change that how I want to make it look like. And inside with stylebox, I can insert whatever I want. And to show you another object here, I do a simple text inside. And as you can see, it is replicated once per record. So inside that, we can write whatever we want. By example, company. Company is, of course, just plain text. But if we select that, we can change the style, but also toggle the Qodly source. And here I can say, company is the placeholder which I want to see in the design mode, but really in runtime, I want to see the current object. The current element, the iterated element in 4D is a this, and in Qodly it's $this. And here I want to have a name. And I can change the format. I will do that in a minute. So let's save it and take a look. And we already have our records again with a nice yellow background and with the data. So to avoid wet colors, let's remove it because it's not making it nicer. It was just to understand. And let's move some more fields. Here I want to have a contact name and the city and the zip. And depending which country you would use first with zip or when the city or whatever. And I want to have that a little bit smaller because that is too big. Let's say 12 points. Sorry, need to select. Let's say 12 points. No. Should work. Size, text. Ref. Oh, it's the transformation. Here, sorry, beginner error. That is, of course, the size. I want to have some gap. And I need to assign fields. So, source, $with, contact, print, source, city, and zip. Zip. Because it's still too easy, let's say we also want to have a picture inside. the company icon. So we have an image object, move it on the left side. That image is way too big. So let's make it smaller by finding the correct fields, 40 and 40. Assign, to show it, we can also use assigning by here. You can also assign here the field names and the sources. And for Qodly source, it is $with. And then we have somewhere a logo. And now save it and try it. And we have the logos and the name. And we could say, the positioning is not nice. So let's check that. The company field with object, we have an undefined width, let's say 150 pixel, it's not enough. 180 pixel, better. Save, preview, and it's automatically two columns. We could make a space in between, but you can see it is pretty simple to make with design. You can design it as you want. If you click, nothing happens. Why? I hope that you can already guess what I missed. For the bar, we have assigned the Qodly source, but we did not yet assign the selected element, which is client. You can also see the $with. So save, preview, and now we get the same functionality with save as before. As we still have some minutes and I still have some empty space, and for this relational system, let's also use relations as the last step. Here I want to see the invoices from this customer. To make it quick, I just move in the data table, assign the invoices. So the invoices from the selected client is the relation named invoice list. Let's check. Client's invoice, and if it's the invoice list. So invoice list, and we need columns. And as I already said, you can either drag and drop directly or just use here the add columns. And I need 3, so let's add 3 directly. For each of them, you can give a title, the source format. So let's start with the source, $with, sorry, not $with, name. No, we first want to check what fields we want. So we want the invoice date. Invoice date is creation date, yeah. Creation date, invoice number, and total. So creation date. We could say that this is a date, and this allows us to format the date. And we could give a title which makes more sense, and change the width. So for the second one, the source is invoice number. Yeah, invoice number. It's the text, and the last one, the title is not nice. Number, and the last one is the total, and this is a number, and the number with 2 tickets, and width should fit, I think. Maybe give it a little bit wider. So save, try, select one, and you can see it's working. It is that simple. So next step would be to make a little bit more distance here, maybe to add some colors, maybe to add an edit button to allow to edit the invoice, stuff like that. It was just a 45 minutes presentation with 3 or 4 errors because everything was live. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and my errors was not too bad. And now it's time for you to try yourself. You only need a 4D Developer Edition. Everything else is included.
Thank you, Thomas. It was a great demo for the Qodly Pro. So before we jump into your questions, just a quick heads up from our marketing team. So for the webinar series, we'll be taking a break in August. As you know, we have a webinar every month. So, but we will be back strong in September with fresh new ideas and sessions planned for the last quarter of the year. Some of the topics will include 4D Qodly Pro and user authentication, advanced AI integrations, and CSS in 4D. All right, it's time. Thomas, are you ready to answer the questions?
So thanks for watching, and sorry again for my errors. But it was a live presentation and things happen. Just happy that I could solve all of them in a reasonable amount of time. But I just realized that I missed to show something, so I need to share again. And this answers also a little bit the question about which version I was using. I was using 20R8. Minimum you need to use is R2, but it makes no sense anymore. Qodly is disabled in 20 LTS. And this is why if a button is missing on your side, this was another question, you are not using an R release. You are using 20 LTS. Qodly was constantly developed in the last versions. It's greatly enhanced with security, with features. We will add even more features in R10. R10 will go better in the next days, maybe this week, latest on beginning of next week. So it's ongoing and heavy development. And many of the features you might see first in Qodly are developed for 4D or different. So it is really now you see that the stuff is usable in desktop and Qodly pages. So what I missed, if you follow the presentation by using the 4D invoice example, or if you're using your own structure, everything will work as a demo, as I showed. But if you try by creating a new structure from scratch, it will fail. And this is what I missed to mention. The reason is we changed the security settings with 20R6. So before 20R6, the REST server was working in a way that everything was allowed and you needed to blacklist what you don't want. This makes it really easy to code, but it's not the really best approach for security. So we changed that in R6. Now everything is blocked and you need to whitelist what you want to allow. And it is bundled with an automatic activation of forced login. Forced login means as somebody which did not run through any authentication is only allowed to see the login dialog and nothing else. He is not allowed to receive any record. No access to data, nothing. The only thing a non-logged in user could use is the authentication function. And by the way, this not logged in user by trying to hack into your system will not consume any 4D license because he's not identified. So if you create a new thing with R6, that is enabled by default, and if it's an older structure, it is disabled. If you really start with a new structure for learning the thing, I would even recommend to disable it because it will disable the permission concept and it's way easier. You have in all structures only the guest user with nothing assigned. In a new structure, we have here a privilege named nobody with everything assigned, and this means that everything is blacklisted. So remove that, delete the nobody user, and everything is open, which is easy for playing around. Of course, this is not the way to go really in production. For production, for permissions, we have many videos already showing how permission works, and this is really a very detailed system. You have control about every table, about every action like delete, update. You have control for every field, control for every function. It's a wonderful system. And behind that, so the control of fields is a kind of column control. We have also control on records, meaning you can filter the displayed record on a database level to say that this user is only allowed to see, by example, records from Germany, but not customers from somewhere else. This is named restricted query. And restricted query is also usable in 4D. So if you declare restricted queries, you get the same filtering in the 4D side and in the Qodly side. So this is another example of how this is enhanced. Restricted query was the first event we added to order in 4D. And with R10, you will soon get a huge amount of new events, like an entity was new created, a field was modified, and this all will come with R10 and with 21, which will go better in October, so it's not so far away. We will even add way more order events like before save, during saving, after saving. This is really very, very detailed. And the last thing I missed to show, um, I always use this preview, which is showing the preview inside Studio, which is quite easy to do small tests. This morning, when you make the same presentation for Europe, people ask how to look it in a real application. You just use this preview button, and when yeah, I need to save first. I get a new tab, a new page, and it behaves as it would be in the full browser. And this means, of course, that if I resize, it also needs to show that it's really responsive. And if you use from Chrome the feature to mimic a tablet or a smartphone, you have also the design as it would be in a smartphone. So you have really the direct display. What about what I missed? So now the questions which are not answered yet. First question was, I'm not good at designing a nice looking interface. So sorry, that is the same issue if you design a desktop application or a browser application. You manage so far to work in 40 form editor to make a nice interface. And I'm quite sure you can do the same with the Qodly interface. And need to share again. And make that bigger again, go back to the studio. And we are helping you. I quickly mentioned that we have templates. And templates not only have different ways to design the data table, but also a huge amount of different design of pages. And the idea is here that people with limited interface skills, and I'm especially talking about myself, my interface is always a disaster. The idea is not to define an interface on a white page, but to simply look for a design which fits to what you want to do, like for the login or for an appointment, and then to drag and drop it and to select the parts you want. We have some videos showing how to do it, where really everything was just used and then different color or different size. So it helps you a lot. If you really want to ask an external company, when I'm sorry, Qodly Studio is the wrong way. Ever we need to learn it because it is not as 10 years ago where the designer is working in HTML. This is not existing anymore. A designer making a web interface will work in a framework, and that framework could be React or could be Qodly. But if somebody is skilled in creating a user interface and React and using React components, you need to use React for full picture, but you can still use 4D and in the background you either use the REST server for 4D or your own. So I don't think I mentioned that today. Everything I showed you today, this is React. So this Studio is a kind of front-end generator to build behind React user interface. We are using all the features from React, but you can use also other frameworks. So the other question was about the button. As said, I'm quite sure, I think you also wrote it already in the chat. You need to use 20R and not 20 LDS. So if you're using 20.7, this means you are using the LDS version. Next question was multi-language application. We have thousands of xliff resources. So yeah, it's about how to deploy the application in any language. So here, of course, I can just type in save and can type sichern or whatever, any language. but I cannot automatically switch. So we need a feature to adapt the translation to the browser interface. This is of course not xliff because browsers and JavaScript are not really good with XML. It will be a JSON file, and we are working on it. And now I need to confess, I'm not absolutely sure if we will ship that next week or the feature will needs to be delayed a while. It is in heavy development, and I think it will arrive very, very soon. Could be already next week, but not 100% sure if we do it. When there's a question is how can I test the deployment of Qodly as a developer? So I'm now a developer and I test it, and my license allows me to run it from my local browser or to use my iPhone using just the normal developer edition. So it's absolutely no problem to use both the same. If you want to have more licenses, meaning when you use the test server, which is included in the partner contract, which allows for more users. How to connect to 40 server. It is possible to do the development with 40 server. I personally prefer desktop development, meaning 40 developer edition, because it's easier for me to switch between both. But we have some blog posts how to use it with the server. You can even run the debugger in the browser, connect the debugger to connect to debug code running on 40 server. But as I said, this is just what you prefer. If you do desktop development also on the server, then maybe it's a reason. Which web browsers work best for Qodly development? I think the best is currently anything which is Chrome based, meaning Chrome itself. If you're on Windows, either Chrome or Microsoft Edge. For deployment, it works on anything. You can even do development on Safari. On Safari, we display a little bit a small tip saying that Safari is not a certified browser for development yet. And the reason simply we want to focus and to avoid that customers have different behavior because we develop on different things and when misunderstandings in why something works like that or like that because the browser behave different. So we recommend for development, if possible, to use Chrome. I did all the training here in Chrome, and you might have noticed in the beginning I said in 4T simply open Qodly Studio and it launched Chrome. And this only happened because, especially for today, I set my default browser to Chrome while I'm normally using Safari. And I didn't found problems yet, but as a beginner, I really would recommend to use Chrome just to avoid that you run into that one single thing nobody realized yet and to avoid having strange results. So in the beginning, please use Chrome. One thing is how to publish to the browser. In the demo, I always just clicked on that small icon here to preview because this is doing the preview as we see in the tip inside the studio. In a real application, you would do the preview here, which is, and I cannot do it now because it would open, or maybe it's open a tab. Yeah, it's opening a tab. And now I have the same in the browser window. So what you normally do is the browser window to get your full application. And only for small tests, you might do it inside the studio itself. So it allows both. And here to repeat it also, that is the main reason why we decided to use the browser as a designer. All you do is working in the, you're creating an application to be used in a browser. And the best way to have a perfect preview is to run it in the browser. So you see in development directly what your end user is getting. How to publish the solution. When you are finished with your design, you go to settings. In settings, you have the application, and here you say the start page, meaning when the user enters the URL of your or the IP address, it automatically shows the client page. Normally, you would have a login page up front, or you would have a welcome page up front, which then leads to the login. We have several videos created in the last summit and follow-up presentations where we showed that in detail and gives you full control. What I did not show here, you have even ways to control from 4D depending of the context, depending of who is logged in to switch to different pages. While you do not write code here, you always execute code on the 4D side, which is calculating something and returning it back, and that return could be also the page you display. And there was, I think yesterday, 2 days ago, a discussion in the forum about this is a low-code tool. Yeah, it's low-code, same as 4D form editor. In a 4D form editor, you don't code, you design, and then you call 4D functions or 4D methods. And it's exactly the same here. This is a form editor you use to design your stuff, and you code 4D code. Next question. What about a text writer like Qodly Pro? You can use in your sites, which I did not display, but if you followed, no, it depends. If you followed yesterday in Germany or in Japan, the release note for R9, or about a week or 2 weeks ago, the same release note in English or French, we had at the beginning a presentation about Qodly where we showed custom components. And custom components allows to enhance the number of components we have here. And we have published some custom components using tiny MCE or similar text editors, rich text editors, which is possible to give text edit fields. You have nothing as powerful as Qodly Pro. Technically, behind Qodly pages, we are using React. So we can use more or less all the React feature set also inside a Qodly page. But there's nothing available as powerful as Qodly Pro. Not, at least not yet. Next question is, what is the best way to develop in a multi-developer team? Sure, you use version control, you use Git, similar as in 4D. And all these pages are just text files on disk. And these text files are similar to a 4D form. It is not a HTML text, it is a JSON file describing how to display the page. Same concept as we use in 4D forms. It is really a 4D form is for desktop design, describing how it should look like, and a Qodly page is describing how it should look like in the web. And by using version control, you have all the features. So hopefully question was answered. Next one, is the Qodly user license the same as a desktop license? No, this is a client server concept. This is not really designed to create desktop applications. If you want to use desktop applications, create a desktop application. Idea here is to use web applications a customer can use in a browser, on a tablet, somewhere in the world, in the office, at home, in a plane, whatever, a train, whatever. So it's a client server application, and it's using the same license as a 4D desktop client. And we started that concept many years ago, where we said a client license is independent of the client itself, meaning it is Mac or Windows or SQL or 40 Open, if you remember 20 years ago, is sharing the same license concept. And Qodly is exactly sharing the same license. So you have, as I showed before, the login. You can have an action as a logout button. So similar as launching 4D and quitting 4D, it is exactly the same. And so a user working in the office with 4D desktop, leaving, continue to work in the metro driving home, he can continue, he's using the same license. It's user-based. Is there a template to preview result on an iPhone screen size? Quite easily, but I assume it will not. So if I make it too small, you can see that it stops down, but it goes too small. And if I want to test it and be in testing mode, save. If I think I don't have installed, Chrome allows you to emulate different phones, and you can enable it with Chrome developer tools. And when you have, you can switch between large iPhones, smaller ones, and to test that behavior. We are using everything using browser, so this so we can. On an iPhone, it's not a native app, and different to 44 mobile, it is a browser app running on the phone.
We have two more, questions, easy questions, let's say like that. So is Firefox an option? Yeah.
I'm just typing it because I realized that I missed it. Yes.
Yes. So on the other one, I think.
It's a comment. It's a nice comment. Thanks.
Thank you to all of you. And thank you, Thomas, for all the answers. If you have more questions or thoughts after the session, I'm sure you have, feel free to post them on the 4D forum. So Thomas and the team will be keeping an eye out and will respond there. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. So thank you.
Goodbye.